Starting in quarantine without an end in sight, we're bringing to you advice and good conversation from one teenager to another. This is Chelsea and Sonica with Armbridge, a podcast we hope to be informative and reflective of the everyday world around us. Again, thank you for joining us today. Today it is April 21st, 2020. And last week we sort of had a warm-up episode where we took everyone's sort of suggestions and questions and we helped to give advice. Hopefully we helped to give advice. And would you like to actually introduce today's topic? It's pretty
Yeah,
different from
okay.
the last.
It is. That really was a warm up. So, what we asked this week to you guys is what are some things that need to be addressed in the music industry? And boy, did we get some spicy replies. I got to do some research.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna go impromptu on this one then, because
All right.
I just
Well,
sort of
okay,
thought
so
about
for
it.
me, I got a lot of questions. I thought it'd be way too much to cover in 50 minutes. So I grouped it into like easy statements that are like opinions, and we can just give our opinion, I guess. Next is
Okay.
sexism and like racism in the music industry and how
Oh,
that affects
oh,
artists.
yeah. Hmm.
So the tea's hot. Next is like explicit lyrics, objectification, that kind of stuff in
We did actually talk about that
music.
a lot though.
Yeah,
Just in,
previously
just in
in
like,
casual.
yeah, we were talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Then this one was kind of a standalone. There are two standalone questions that were pretty unique, and I like those. One was streaming music and its effect on artist compensation, and the other one
Oh,
was, yeah, suing artists over stuff like scales or chord progressions and like
oh, that's
how
true.
that. I thought both were super interesting. So, all right, let's do
The rest of
this.
mine were okay, great.
Or wait,
So
you can
we
say yours.
started. Oh, my bad.
You're
The
good.
only mine were pretty much the same, I guess. But one of them was like how an artist would classify themselves in terms of genre. So that was sort of one I thought was interesting, but I guess we can start with your first one, which I already forgot.
Okay, so we'll start off with the easy statements or like the opinion statement type ones because those are
Yeah,
like
yeah.
pretty chill to respond to, and then we'll get heated
Hmm.
as this hour progresses.
Ooh.
So the first one was a statement. It was more SoundCloud rappers with the muscle emoji. That was the statement.
Like there should be more
I don't
SoundCloud
know. That was the statement. More
rappers.
SoundCloud rappers.
Um, I
Based
don't
on the
have much
person, I guess.
experience in this.
I don't either.
Oh, like I heard, I don't know. I'm not really. I am all for, I guess, like promoting yourself
Yeah.
through platforms like that. But it really makes me wonder how some of these people got famous. I like
Lil Pump.
wonder. Exactly. I don't know if
Gucci
it's
gang,
like
Gucci gang,
mass
Gucci gang.
appeal, but I guess like sort of the question that comes out from this is like, how does that in any way like devalue music? Because I know some people that are critical of like SoundCloud rappers are like, oh, they don't have substance, or like more old school rappers are like, I worked hard in my time and I actually thought about my lyrics, but then like these kids are out here doing this and that,
Releasing
talking
whatever.
about things.
But I think that
Right.
goes both ways. I mean, you have some people that are like signed with labels too that like put out shallow or like demeaning or just like
Oh, yeah, I mean
quote
for
unquote
sure.
not thoughtful music, right? I think it's just
Yeah.
SoundCloud and other like streaming platforms like this give easier access. And it goes two ways too, because like if you look at current artists, like if I don't have it wrong, I think Doja Cat, she also started on SoundCloud itself. Um,
Oh.
a lot of the like mainstream rappers today started on SoundCloud and they're like objectively good. So I think, I mean, if you have a platform that provides easy access and an easier way to publish your music, you're going to get both, but I think it still has its merits.
Mhm.
Do you want to do one of yours? We can start there and then we can go into like my
Let me check.
notes.
I think a lot of mine were pretty similar to yours.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think one of the most like prominent ones that was like without like throughout the theme of all the questions that I got or inquiries was how like double standards are addressed, which I'm sure you
Ooh.
have some inquiries that are similar as well.
What do you mean like double standards? Because that again can exist in multiple categories.
I assume it's in the context of like male and female
Male,
musicians.
female. Okay, so do you
Yeah.
want to just get into that? Because like I think
I guess. I feel like
one of
that'll be
your
like a
questions.
huge part of it.
Yeah, that's gonna be a pretty big chunk. Um,
Since
I kind of grouped a bunch of them together. So I have two of mine. One says sexism. There's a lot of it. Yes. I have
Yes.
some articles to prove it.
Oh my.
Then it says Taylor Swift, she deserves none of the hate that she gets, which I agree, and I will address that. And then the third, well, that was one of your questions, objectification of female artists. And then I kind of grouped a fourth one together because the article addresses both at the same time. Is the treatment of like POC artists and like how they're
for sure.
disregarded by the Western industry by like a lot. We see that a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
But we'll start with like male and female disparity. Okay, so I printed an article from Forbes because I was doing a bit of research beforehand.
Locked and loaded.
I know. When I get passionate about things, you know I like music stuff. If it means calling out the industry and becoming their enemy, then so be it. Okay, so this is from Forbes. It is an article by, let me see who, so I can like credit them and not get sued. By Caitlin Kelly. Thank you, Caitlin Kelly, Miss Caitlin Kelly. But it was talking first about like women, women in the music industry in general. It was talking about a study led by Dr. Stacy L. Smith in quotes, the inclusion in the recording studio. So this is a report that marks the initiative's second annual investigation into the music industry. I'm reading exactly from the article, and then we can like talk about it afterward. To study the gender and race of industry's core professions, the researchers looked at 700 top songs on Billboard's year-end Hot 100 chart between 2012 and 2018. Across the three creative roles highlighted in the study, women make up 21.7% of artists, 12.3% of songwriters, and only 2.1% of producers. I was like, that's not good. This was released just 5 days ahead of this year's Grammys. Since it was written in 2019, that would be last year. The report once again proves that last year's Grammy So Male hashtag trended for a good reason. So there's our little statistic of the day.
That's like, I don't know. I hate to say that I am not as surprised. Like, I mean, I guess it's like really hard as a woman to come out and do what you want. In a sense, like, but I can't really attribute as to why. I mean, I guess because of the fact that, like, I mean, it's been a while since, I don't even know where I'm going with that. I'm not really sure, because you'd have to trace it back really far, I guess.
You would. Okay, if we go a little further down in the article, it says that researchers also interviewed 75 female songwriters and producers to gain insight into their lived experiences of women in music. Over 40% of the respondents admitted their colleagues dismissed or discounted their work or skills. Meanwhile, 39% have experienced stereotyping and sexualization. A third said the music industry is male-dominated, and a quarter experienced being the only woman in a recording studio. So I think that's a big part of it. Like the study, we're trying to find like the cause for why women are such a small minority of like Billboard Hot 100 lists. But I think that would definitely contribute to it. Like if I were the only woman in a recording studio, if I were a songwriter that was constantly being discounted for my lyrics and told I'm not enough, like that's discouraging, whether you want it to affect you or not. Like it does get in the way, and it makes things a lot harder to do. So yeah.
I guess it's also sort of attributed to like when we were talking about what femininity meant, sort of in our last episode, tying back to that. I guess like with like male artists, right, you have like a bigger range expected of you. Like you can be sensitive, you don't have to, you can be like hardcore in terms of like the genres of music, but femininity is seen as being like gentle already.
Submissive. Yeah.
Yeah. And so once you start becoming flexible, it's like weird because people aren't really used to that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's sort of where you fall in.
And that's why I think someone brought up Taylor Swift, right? I think we could bring her in now, right? She kind of shows that range you were talking about, where it's like she's a businesswoman. Like there's no denying that. Like if you take yourself and like market yourself and brand yourself to the extent that she did, like that's insane. And you could tell the industry's not used to that, because she's done so many different things for artists. Like, she's the one that called out streaming services for underpaying artists for their work. She's the one that's taken so many moves, set so many trends, like did so many things for the industry while maintaining that kind of like feminine personality. Like, if you look at Lover or Speak Now, or like a lot of her albums are very feminine, right? But I guess, I don't know, the industry just can't process both of those at the same time.
It's like in an attempt to sort of just like keep her in that like small range that people are expected of her. Like, I mean, this is like something pretty common, but people were like at the time before, oh, like every time she dates a man, she writes a song about him. Yada yada. It's like just an excuse to like contain her in
your
this.
Favorite, like, male artists also do the same thing, but no one's
talking
about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you know, it's Hollywood. You're gonna do stuff.
And that
like that's
brings up your double standard thing, right? Where it's like the same thing male artists get away with, a lot of times female artists just can't. Like, and this is one example where Taylor Swift like constantly criticized for writing songs about her boyfriends or her love life, when like literally everyone else is doing that.
And like, it's, I mean, the double standard is also attributed to that range, you know? Like, if an artist decides to talk about maybe, I don't know, like topic A, right? They have more room to say whatever they want, I guess. Because it's just like socially acceptable that that's like okay or whatever. Like, I admit I listen to songs, and sometimes like an explicit or like sexual lyric comes up, and then I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna move on. But like, I think being more conscious of those little things like shows how much the double standard has like sort of infiltrated, and how much people can like kind of get away with, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Do you have any other comments to the?
All of mine were kind of similar to yours, not gonna lie. Well, the only specific one was like the genre, like how artists should classify themselves by genre.
Oh yeah, we can go to that next. I have the people of color question next, but yeah, we'll go to genre first, and then we can bring up racism.
I guess the most common. Oh no.
Oh no.
But we're both, well, okay, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
Both people of color, we have opinions, and they are valid.
That's what I was gonna say. You know what?
Here we go.
But yeah, I guess the first thing I can kind of think about when I go to that is like this. I don't know if you've seen this. I know you keep up with the Grammys and stuff. But when Tyler, the Creator, it also ties into your POC question, like where Tyler, the Creator, gave a speech. I think he won like best hip hop album or something for Igor. I don't know what.
Yeah.
But he was saying like, you know, like African Americans are always put into like the genre of like hip hop or urban or whatever. But like after listening to Igor, I could tell it was like a totally new
it's just
like
genreless.
musical experiment. Exactly. But I guess it sort of makes it's easier for people to understand, like in terms of genre, what kind of music someone does. Because if they're like, some people know they don't like, I don't know, country music, so they don't listen at all to country music. So it's just a way, I guess, for industries to sort of market the image of their musician, but at the same time, it sort of does damage to like real populations, real communities, and like real people
when
that
you're boxing them in. And
they're not Tyler anymore, they're not Megan anymore, they're not Doja anymore, whatever, right?
They're this hip hop artist, You could see that with K-pop too. Both of us listen to that, and like,
sure.
This is gonna tie into the POC question again. I have a lot on this to say, but like in recent years, they started showing up to more Western award shows, right? And I'll get into that later. I don't want to like digress too much, because it's gonna be spicy. But you can already see like they're starting to create separate K-pop categories. Like the first time BTS came to billboards, they were part of the everybody category because there wasn't category for them, right? So they were just a part of everyone. But as more and more groups become more popular in the West, they're already creating a separate K-pop category for these artists to be boxed into, and it's like, why?
It's not like helpful. Because it's encouraging you to think of them differently.
Exactly.
And it already adds on to like, you know, other problems.
And when they're not like grouped into the same category as like best artist or something, because now you have best artist, you have best Latin artist, you have best hip hop artist, now you have best K-pop artist, and it's like the best artist overall is almost never hip hop, quote unquote, so like African
Oh
American or
yeah, yeah.
Latin or like K-pop, you know, it's just keeping them lower in the ranks in all these award shows.
And it's sort of like a willingness to like not accept their
The
creative work
diversity. Mm-hmm.
in a way. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm just gonna rehash this story real quick, but I know I told you this. But if you look up, there's this song called like Trap House by a Korean group called MBA, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like a very popular underground hip hop group in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And like obviously, or anyway, a lot of the comments from Western audiences were like, I don't think any of these guys have ever been to a trap house. And I was like, what in the name of God is a trap house? And so I went to Google, I looked it up, and I realized it was like a term for like a building where you like sell drugs and do other illegal activities and whatnot. But I guess it shows like, I mean, of course, like maybe they're just not as educated on the term, but it shows like that maybe like their hip hop is considered different from just hip hop as a whole. But really, like the
Mm-hmm.
rest of their music is pretty normal stuff, like pretty hip hoppy stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like just a social like willingness to not really to like stick with what you're comfortable with rather than like
Right.
accepting other.
Differences.
Yeah.
And I think it goes both ways from your statement too, right? Like on both sides.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like I definitely thought the title of the song was not appropriate, but
It's not very
um,
well thought out.
but yeah, yeah, it's like a really difficult thing because I guess like foreign artists like understand what's popular and know what works, and then
Right.
in an attempt to
But they're
sort of,
still
you
placed
know,
in the box.
yeah,
Yeah.
because like I mean they're either gonna have to either for popularity they either have to adapt to Western circumstances or just somehow break through. I don't really know. I'm not really sure. Um, but yeah, I guess like yeah, I'm not sure how they would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Other than BTS seems to be the exception in breaking out into the Western media, but at the same
Oh, the
time they're
West
still
hates them for it. It's great.
yeah. I mean like I don't know. Y'all like Gangnam Style. What was up with that?
That see, okay, so
What
you
was
know
up
what? Let's
with
just go.
that?
Let's just go into the POC
What was
question
up with
because
that? Yes, yes, let's
okay.
go.
So basically, the statement was how Western music or how the Western music industry overlooks people of color or like non-white artists. Let's just
Oh
be
yeah.
blunt. Okay. Um, And so I think I had two examples. One was Air Rahman and like Bollywood. I didn't think of Gangnam Style, but that's actually a really good example. Let me write that
Your
down.
pen clicking.
Sonika's writing. But that's another good example. And like both of those kind of show how like the West treats any foreign music as like a phase, right? Where
Mm.
oh no, my mom's knocking. She's gonna come into my room in like 5 minutes. But
Oh.
okay, anyways, so A.R. Rahman's J-Ho, that was back in that okay, every Indian's about to like disown me for my pronunciation. It's fine.
Oh no.
This was back in like 2009. I remember there was like so much hype around it. Like everyone in the US was dancing to J-Ho. He won like a Grammy. A.R. Rahman as in like he won the Grammy, right? Um and like Bollywood music was like a whole thing for a solid year. I remember like these dance instructors came to our like after school thing and they taught us to dance. And little Indian me was like elated by it. I was like, oh my god, my
Representation.
culture on y'all's dance routine. What? Like I was so happy for it. But then like once that like hype died down, it was immediately a like completely Western focused industry
Mm.
again, right? Same with Gundam Style. It had its moment back in what
That was
was
so
it?
random.
Around
Like,
the same
how
time,
did it?
right?
Ah, it was so random.
I mean, hey.
It got me
um,
into K-pop though, not gonna
exactly.
lie.
So it did a good job. Um, so yeah, Gundam Style also had its moment like a couple-ish years later around the same time, right? And the West did the same thing. They like accepted its like massive hype. They accepted the fact that it went viral and garnered like billions of views.
Mm.
But then once that hype died down, again, the West was just like, okay, goodbye, take your little trophy, go home, have fun. And then their little exclusive Western group was like back to dominating all these like award shows and stuff. And I'm talking a lot. I'm really sorry. I just have like
Oh
a ton
no,
of
it's fine. It's fine.
okay. I brought up K-pop again, right? Because I think this is like the first time we're seeing some form of like foreign quote unquote music completely dominating the Western scene. Like I brought up BTS earlier and how they like kind of proliferated the Western music industry. And when they were invited to like award shows, they didn't have a category for them because no one had done it like that before, right? And since then, the genres only grew. Like you've seen like NCT, Monsta X. Now even like a lot of girls are making it into the West. Like it's clear that K-pop is here to stay in the Western industry, and it's like already proliferated it. But the West is still kind of trying to treat them like a phase. They're still trying to be like, okay, you got your award, goodbye, go home, you know? But they're not going home because people genuinely enjoy the music now, and it's just not going anywhere.
I feel like it's just because of, I don't know if this like word makes any sense, but it's sort of being like commodified in a way. Like people are willing to watch like Korean dramas, listening to Korean music, but then the moment it's like it's real, like I guess you sort of detach the music from like an actual person. Like there are actually people making that music. And I guess Korean music is like, I wouldn't say more, it's more like visual, more like high energy, exciting. And so it's like definitely different from Western music. But it's sort of just like, again, like sort of what we were talking about before. People aren't like willing to give up what they already know. Like I don't speak Korean. I'm not gonna listen to this. Like
that
they just
brings up
sound
Parasite
good.
as
That's
well.
great.
Remember when Parasite won?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Okay. What was the award show? I don't
just
remember the award show. I think it was the
it
Academy
the
Awards
Golden
and then
Globes?
Golden Globes. Yeah, and then everyone was all over here like, I'm not gonna read subtitles. Like it's not gonna hurt you to read subtitles.
It's not. Well, I don't know. I guess I'm used to reading subtitles just because I watch a lot of subbed shows.
Yeah,
but
and I've grown
like
up watching Bollywood too, so.
I mean, I don't know. Like just don't watch it. Like you're not gonna like every movie that you see. Like okay, great. Like move on.
But the justification that like people don't want to read subtitles, I don't know, it just irks me. Like dude, it's not that serious if it's a movie.
Xenophobic or something. Like I don't know. Come on, man.
But yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was trying to get at, where it's like the West is still treating foreign artists like they're a phase and their hype's gonna die down. But it's clear that like now that globalization is becoming a huge thing for us, and it's like foreign music's also a lot more accessible to the West. They're here to stay, and like the West feels very, very threatened by that. But it's interesting to see it all play out.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Should we sort of like shift to like POCs here? Because I feel like that's also something that we've talked about
also an issue.
a lot.
Yeah, go for it. I was actually gonna take it in the same direction now.
Yeah. Honestly, like because I think people tend to sort of neglect the entire premise that like POCs here are like having an issue.
What do you mean?
Or sort of like people sort of say things about certain artists because they're becoming popular. Like, okay, I guess I can explain this with like talking about Lizzo. Honestly, I love her so much. She's great.
I love her. I adore
Huge
her.
inspiration. I love her energy. But she started getting like a lot of hate regarding like I guess her her body and her health. Like people saying like, oh, you're not healthy because you're like, you're fat. But that's like totally
okay.
In the
comments over this on Instagram.
I know, like
oh god,
health looks different for everybody. Like
and I always bring up the example, like the fact no normal person can sing and dance and play the flute for an hour straight.
Play the flute. Come on.
I can't even walk and sing at the same time, and I've been singing for 14 years.
Like, just add another level on that. Amazing.
Yeah, like she is healthier than any of us will ever be. I know. I don't care what she looks like. I don't care what y'all have to say. None of us, and I mean none of us, can sing and dance and play the flute at the same time for an hour.
But yeah, I mean, because like it sort of makes me question, like, if she weren't like a POC, right? Like, would people treat her differently? Would people be more excited? I can't really think of a specific example, but
that's because they're pushed down.
Like it's like a subconscious thing that people have, I guess. Yeah. Like when they're, doing that, listening to music. That is.
Okay, so I've kind of noticed this with a lot of like Indian YouTubers. I'm Indian. Hello, for those listening. Y'all listening to the podcast that can't see my face.
That is Sonika.
Sonika, I'm the Indian person in this podcast. No, but growing up, I used to watch a lot of like Indian singing YouTubers, right? Like you'd have Vidya Vox, you'd also have, what's her name, Raja Kumari. They're both like really, really, really talented Indian female artists, but both of them kind of ended up finding their niche in the Bollywood industry. That's not to say they didn't want to, but like they started off as like US born people. Like they were born in the US or Canada, right? They were born in the West, but they're still kind of placed in that Indian box. And I can say for Vidya Vox specifically, she started off doing pretty much like English covers. Like she had other covers in like various different Indian languages, but she also did like English covers, and she spoke English, and you know she's an American or Canadian. I don't know if she's from Canada or America, but she's from the West. I don't know, yeah, and it just brings up the fact that like even POC that are born here, we're still kind of pushed into like our home country's label. Like I'm still considered Indian, even though I haven't lived a day in India. I couldn't live there because it's just not where I've grown up. It's not where I've like molded myself, you know? But I know if I were to try and enter the music industry, people would still try to like push me into that label. Like, oh, you're Indian, go stick to your like Bollywood or like whatever. So
there's also that like model minority myth. I know that's like something common for the Asian American community.
Yes, it
and
is.
like it's really like not true. I guess this also like for other musicians as well. Like you're not growing up in your home country or maybe in like a specific community. Like American, I guess like values are somewhat universal. So that's something like I guess that you sort of don't really realize, like that everyone you know that might have grown up here is also, you know, they have these two parts of them that like you can't really separate. And I guess with people like Rich Brian and the whole like 88 Rising is also sort of a good, somewhat sort of like it's a really nice movement to see. But at the same time, like people didn't really take him seriously, I guess, when he sort of came out with his like his first song. I don't know if you've seen it, Dat Stick. It's insane. But like I guess if it were someone, you know, from the States or someone who was a SoundCloud rapper, you'd probably think, oh, they're probably trying to further their career. But you just see this like short Asian kid with a fanny pack on,
and your mind
rapping
goes
about police brutality, and it's like, what is this? Like, how is this even?
Right. No, exactly though. Yeah.
It's a huge like, it's like starting to get better, I guess. But I think also like some of their criticisms are excuses for people not to admit they're not as comfortable with a POC artist. Like I guess like I guess people like comment certain things on, or I guess like POC artists get a lot of like more hate than non-POC artists in a way that like people will comment things like, oh, your body is like this, or oh, your lyrics are like this, or oh, I don't like this song.
But it's meandering around the fact that it's,
you know, a part of you is like, a part of them is like afraid of feeling comfortable listening to people that maybe don't look like them or whatnot. Because it's like in your subconscious, I guess, like, you know, thinking of people like that.
I just don't get it, because I mean, both of us have grown up in like a really, really diverse city, right? Like, and if you go through my Spotify,
it's hard for us to imagine.
Yeah, I literally will find at least 5 languages in my Spotify playlist right now. Right here. Let's look at like the first 20 songs. We've got English, we've got Korean, we've got Hindi, we've got Spanish. That's
4 already.
4, yeah. Then we've got French. There we go, 5 within 20 songs.
5. One hit KO.
There we go. But yeah, I don't get it. I don't. And we were talking earlier. Sorry, I'm like really dragging this on, but like I have a lot to say about it. We were talking about the Grammys kind of like boxing everybody into like best Latin artist, best hip hop artist, best K-pop artist, or Grammys doesn't have K-pop yet, but like billboards, you know, whoever. Yeah. What was I saying? This whole genre thing is just a very like old-fashioned way of thinking on the industry's part, right? Like now that award shows have to encompass foreign acts, like, you know, Latin artists or like K-pop or like I don't know, maybe somewhere down the line, Hindi music will like get its big break here. I don't know. But they box them in genres because this whole genre mentality is just it's been there for so long. They don't feel like including K-pop artists that have like a hip hop sound in the normal hip hop category because hip hop is associated with like African American people. So I don't know. I just think that like it's a really archaic mindset, and this whole genre thing's not going to work for much longer. Because as you said, even with Tyler the Creator, it was like he was placed in hip hop, but
or something like that. I don't remember specifically.
But it was some genre, some box when it was like so much bigger than that. So hopefully that changes in the future.
I hope so too.
Yeah. I don't think it's gonna last long. Just seeing the way things are like playing out now.
And next question. What's this next question? Oh no, never mind. I forgot. What was your next question?
Do you have another question?
No, I don't.
Okay. These are the two that I thought were really interesting. So one was streaming music and its effect on artist compensation. I also did some research on this, if you want.
Like, I know I researched something about this, like for a project, for like my research project, but I'm not sure exactly what I found from it. But I know like you mentioned that like pirating stuff a long time ago, like that it can actually help you become more invested in a certain artist, and that's like definitely true.
I think
because like buying albums is also something like nice that you can do. But yeah, streaming.
Okay, so do you want to? Yeah, I have some notes. If you want to provide some like things we can base our conversation on. Okay, so the first thing I found, this is from Vox, by the way, so I'm not sure how credible it is, but most of my sources give around the same figures. So on average, artists earn 0.0075 of a dollar per stream, which is, I was surprised in a very bad way when I found that out. I was like, that's it? That's less than a cent. That is 3/4 of a cent.
They just, it takes like, what, like maybe 2 streams to get 1 cent?
Yeah.
Am I doing that correctly?
Yeah, basically. I mean, you get a little over a cent.
I mean, I guess, something like that.
2 streams. And so based on that figure, they'd make only $7.50 per 1,000 streams. Now, I took it upon myself to do a little bit of math. I found the average income for American households, I think this was last year, it was about 50,000. I rounded it up for the sake of like making math easier for me. And in order to make that like average income, you would need almost 7 million streams. On Spotify.
I just had a moment, like, just pausing, like, okay, great. No, wait, not great.
Well, that's a whole country.
But, yeah, I guess, like, doesn't that would have to do with, like, licensing, right? And, like, how much your company decides to take in revenue.
Yeah, but this is assuming you get all of the 0.0075.
Oh, assuming you get all of it? Oh, yeah. Wait, so that 0.75 or whatever, how many? I don't even know. But like that can still be 0.00. Oh, my bad. But that can still be divided
from your company to like other.
So would that just mean that streaming services get the bulk of the money, or?
I don't know exactly how that plays out. I had like 1 hour to research all of this. I was just like furiously scribbling notes. But I mean, that's a tiny amount. And so that's the reason a lot of artists, we've seen the whole streaming debate, right? Where like a lot of artists, I think the most noteworthy one, again, is Taylor Swift. She was the one who like took all of her songs down from Spotify, and she's like, look, streaming is bad for us. And it makes sense, because at first I was like, why would you do that? And then I look at these figures and I'm like, oh, I totally get it. Because streaming decreases like physical album sales. When people have easier access to your songs from like SoundCloud or Spotify, or even like iTunes or Pandora or whatever, right? People are less likely to like physically buy your album. And as we've established, 1,000 album sales will give you significantly more revenue than 1,000 streams.
Sad.
So,
yeah. I mean, I guess streaming also sort of devalues your, I guess, your hard work as an artist, because sometimes like if you have a song that comes out at a really good time, like maybe it's summertime or something, and it goes on like a hot playlist or something, like these streams also contribute, I think, to like where you go on a music chart, if I'm not wrong.
Hmm.
Because I don't know if you like, I'm pretty sure you've heard about this, but I watched a lot of like
Girl,
commentary
I'm a
videos
BTS fan. I know. I know about streaming and charts. I know a thing or
on
two.
what is it, like Justin Bieber's Yummy, and
Yeah.
how he was like really, really trying using very weird methods to like get his song
Promoting
to
it.
be in a top five or something. It's
Yeah.
really weird. Um, but yeah, because I guess like if you rely too much on like streams and you like try to convince people like that's your main method of like marketing your music, um, it's sort of like putting away all the hard work you're doing
Oh
and
yeah.
like
And
more so focusing on views rather than that. So I'm assuming what Taylor Swift's goal was also, aside from streaming like and the monetary compensation and whatnot, is like I guess to preserve her not
give
really
us our money's
integrity as an
worth.
artist, but
Right.
yeah, like I mean, she worked hard on that, and so
Hmm.
the real value of her work is in album sales. Like if you
Hmm.
really like this artist, if you really care about this artist, you would go and buy their album. I mean, maybe you don't have to, or listen to their music on YouTube or support
Hmm.
them in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Um, but
And
yeah, like
yeah.
yeah.
I kind of similar to that. Like I remember seeing these figures and I could definitely empathize with the artist because like as you were saying, for getting your like worth, how do I want to word this? Based on what you were saying for like getting your money's worth or like getting enough money for the amount of work you put in, I could definitely empathize because like I've started writing songs myself, right? And like started
Oh
composing these
yes,
things. And
as we know,
dear
yes.
God, it takes so much work. Like to make
Mhm.
one song, I'd say even like the smallest time frame in which I could make a song is maybe a month.
Oh
Maybe
wow.
no, that's a little too soon. I mean, I'm a beginner, so it would take quite a while for me. But I'm assuming for like bigger, more established artists, maybe a month to 3 months, right? That's a lot of work. And if I'm getting 0.0075 fifths of a dollar per stream for something I put
Oh worth it,
1 to 3
yes.
months at least work in, I'd be mad. You know, like I would
It's
want
true.
more than I would definitely demand more than that. Um, but on the other side of this debate, also I'd like to provide a disclaimer. Again, sorry, I'm like
Oh, that's okay.
talking a lot for this whole episode,
That's okay.
but I'd like to provide a disclaimer. There is a lot of depth to the streaming debate. I am barely scratching the surface with the facts I'm giving. I
Oh,
am way
that's okay. I mean,
oversimplifying this, but
this is for
we have a
casual
time constraint.
viewers,
This is
so
casual.
it's
Yeah, we're
okay.
under time constraint. This is
Casual
casual. On
coffee
the
tea.
other side of the debate, yes. On the other side of the debate, there are a lot of artists that also like say streaming is good for them, and I could also kind of see where they're coming from because if we were still in a place where like music or like you made money off of music solely based on physical sales or like album sales, it would be a lot harder to like become established in the industry, you know? Like
That's true.
I can easily say I owe streaming to discovering again wording. I've discovered well over like I'd say almost 80% of the artists I listen to through streaming platforms. Like I would not have heard of them if it weren't for streaming. So
But it sort of ties into like what we were talking about genre.
the
Like it's
pirating
sort
thing,
of
right?
um I mean also like the fact that like when I go onto Spotify there are playlists of like um certain, like groups of types of music. And I think like one of the biggest things I noticed about like genre grouping is when I added like a PH1 song to like a playlist that I had that was mainly like English music. And so like right when I added that PH1 song, like how Spotify will like
Give you
automatically
suggested
suggest,
playlists.
so if
Yeah.
your playlist is too small and stuff, all of the suggested songs right after I added that one song were all like in
Korean
Korean, and some
songs.
of them were
Mm-hmm.
not even in the genre that he's like a part of.
Yeah, for
So
real.
like streaming services are good in a way that they help promote people, but also in the fact that like it's
They
very quick and
perpetuate the
easy
genre.
to like generalize. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I guess that's also sort of an issue.
Mm-hmm. Fun. Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
I kind of yeah, my closing remarks for that were basically like streaming it can be beneficial because it gives artists more exposure, versus if they had to promote only for physical sales. Because I feel like a person's going to be a lot more willing to invest like 4 minutes of their life rather than like $15 for an album, you know?
Yeah. I
So
mean, you don't
streaming
have to
kind of gives you
listen.
the whole try before you buy type
Oh yeah, of course.
situation with
Like
music.
I
Like,
never buy albums because I just don't have money. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
But also a lot of streams, helps bump your artist up a little bit. So it's good and bad, of course. Like
Yeah,
I don't think
exactly.
there's really a definite answer
It's a change
because
in
some
the
artists like
and
earn so much
like
from other stuff, it doesn't matter.
right. Okay. Do you have a question you want to ask?
No, not so far. Um,
Okay. My final
okay.
one, and I think we're approaching. No, you're good.
Yes, we
This
are
one's the
approaching the end.
spicy. Yes, we are approaching the end. I don't have a whole lot to say for this one because honestly, I kind of knew it was a thing, but like I never really thought about it too much.
Oh,
But it
okay.
was really
Oh,
interesting. So
spicy.
yeah,
Spicy.
one of my fellow music buddies was talking about how like artists sue each other over like scales and chord progressions and like common
Oh, I
like
read some.
musical tools or techniques that should be
Mhm.
available to everyone. And it's like I didn't know what to say at first, but I kind of like went on Google, read on a couple of forums. There's not a whole lot of information on it on the internet either, so I don't have like facts to start us off
Mm.
with. But
Um, I
I
think
think
I did watch a video about this actually.
oh okay.
Um, so I think it was when Juice World passed away, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
Um, hopefully I'm talking about the right thing. But there was this one YouTuber who was a fan of this rock band, I think in the 90s or something, and this band like sued Juice World post his death
Oh,
over a chord progression that was from their
their
song, I think,
song.
in
Why
one of
would
his
you?
songs or something like that. It was kind of like it was really shameless. It was super
Atrocious.
terrible.
Yeah.
But I think this YouTuber was also talking about, I believe it's Drew Gooden. I think it's Drew Gooden. I believe he was talking about the fact that like with chord progressions, there are a lot of common ones that
Yeah, for sure.
through things like sampling and like maybe the producer will add another beat overlaying this sample that is just so
Mhm.
common. Like if you think you hear two things that are similar, you're probably right, but it's not that that person copied the other person. It's just
Right.
that
And
certain chord progressions are super common. I didn't know this, so that was kind of
mhm.
interesting to me.
I think it's also kind of an issue because you never really know when someone is deliberately like plagiarizing music versus
Yeah, it's a slippery slope,
just
really.
accidentally using the same chord progression or like maybe even sampling or like basing their music off of this person's
Hmm.
style, right? And I think that's what creates the whole debate. But yeah, it's weird because um, I know there's certain instances where like plagiarism is pretty blatant. Like,
Oh
ooh,
yeah, for sure.
as much as I love Bollywood, there is so much plagiarism in the industry. Jesus, like everything you've heard has
Academic
copied a
dishonest.
Western artist at one point. Like it's crazy. Um, so there's, I mean, blatant instances of plagiarism a lot of times, but then you have things like chord progressions, right? Like that you were talking about, where it's like there's only a certain number of chords that sound good together and like are appealing to mainstream audiences. So you're gonna have overlap whether you want to or not. Um,
Yeah.
and it's kind of difficult to like establish that line where it's like, are they copying or are they just
Yeah, I
doing what
mean,
sounds good and it happens to sound like this other artist?
there's also a difference between like sampling and
Outright using
I guess
something.
that, yeah. I mean, sampling is a whole other matter,
Oh
but
boy, yeah.
that's like that's like a whole other thing that I have like a really divided opinion about, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
since we're wrapping up to the end, it seems
oh
like
wait,
it's that time for.
I had one more thing to add. Is it okay if I do?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. This was just like one final little remark. I was reading on some forum and I found this interesting. A lot of what we were talking about in terms of examples of like plagiarism and suing and all that stuff, like lies mostly in the pop and rock genre specifically, right? Um, Again, I'm
Oh,
perpetuating the whole genre thing again, I know, but like for discussion purposes, pop and rock. And so someone was asking on the forum why blues artists are like more folksy type genres don't really have this issue of like suing or like plagiarizing and stuff like that, right? And I just thought this was interesting. Someone in the responses was like blues and rock, or not rock, blues and like folk and those kinds of genres. They're passed through oral tradition, so even nowadays, like imitation is seen as flattery, not theft. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Versus in like pop and rock, that's not necessarily the case. And those are also
like
very heavily, yeah, they're also very heavily business oriented. So I feel like people are more likely to care that they're being copied for monetary purposes. So I just thought that was interesting. All right, go ahead.
It seems like it's that time.
It is that time.
Do deep questions with friends.
Oh yes.
Okay. I'm prepared. Are you good?
I'm not prepared.
Okay.
Are you using the same website?
I just found a different one.
Okay, cool. I'll just find a different one too.
Okay. We'll just edit this out.
Oh, this one's for couples.
No.
Okay, let's go.
I'll just repeat this for editing purposes.
Yes.
It seems like it's that time again, everyone. It's time for Deep Questions with Friends, in which we have existential crises over the very few things that have happened in our lives, which is great. Okay.
And it's also in a speed round, so we don't get to think about it.
Speed round.
Yeah.
So we don't get to think. Okay. What would you truly regret not doing if you died today?
Releasing original music. Or at least trying. Yeah. That was quick.
All right. Nice. Yes, that was quick.
Yeah. Cool. I'm glad I've thought about my regrets in death before.
Oh no. Your life is a crisis. Crisis.
This one's pretty quick too, I guess. We're still pretty young, but what do you miss about being like a kid?
Not worrying about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of my teen years were just wasted on worrying about pointless things.
Jesus, yeah.
And now that I'm graduating, like none of those things matter. It's just so temporary. Mm-hmm. So, okay. There was a pretty good one. Would you enjoy watching a movie made of your life?
God, no. No. My new motto for myself is, for real, don't do it. Don't do it.
Does it?
Yeah, for real. It's like, no, she's going to get killed now. Metaphorically. Okay. But yeah, no, I wouldn't, because my new life motto is don't dwell on the past.
That is a very good thing.
Yes. What is your standard for deciding whether you trust someone or not?
Yeah. Honestly, like if someone is transparent with me, then I would be willing to be transparent with someone else, because I'm not like I don't like become very open very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I need to like establish just like a good friendship first, or a good like acquaintanceship, to sort of like be able to
right
in that sense. And if like in the case that like I'm working with someone on something, if they can hold up their end of the bargain, and then from there my impression of you would be pretty good.
That's good.
Okay.
Do you trust me?
Yes, I've known you since
I trust you too. Aw. Yeah, we've told each other too much. I feel like if we don't trust each other, that's an issue.
Okay.
Oh god, middle school flashbacks. Okay, your turn.
We're not doing that. We're not dwelling in the past, Hanukkah. We're not doing this. Okay.
Right.
So. Okay. What advice has someone in your family given, and that I have just taken, and that you have just taken now? Like, ooh. Something that like someone. Yeah.
Shoot. Oh god.
It's called Deep Questions with Friends for a reason.
I don't know. Like when you ask this, there's nothing that really comes to mind. I'm sure there are a lot of like tiny little lessons that like.
Or maybe like not necessarily your family, but like, is there advice that you've taken from someone, like just now, like that you heard before and you were like, nah, it's okay, but then like now you actually sort of realize.
I don't know about blatantly disregarding it, but I know my family's definitely told me like to be firm in your decisions and to like stand up for yourself. Like don't let others step on you. And I don't think, I mean, I kind of like acknowledged that in the back of my mind for a lot of my life, but I never really lived by that, you know? Like I've only just started reaching a point in my life where like I do have to stand up for myself and I do have to be firm on my opinions. Because before that, it was like, what opinion was there to stand up for, you know?
It's true. I mean,
So
yeah, at least at high school, yeah.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
the one that like is coming to the forefront of my life now. So
Mhm.
yeah. Let's see. What is the one thing that makes you feel alive?
A lie.
Alive.
Honestly, like, I guess it's not anything deep, but just like eating and being able to exercise.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like I'm more conscious of like my time and what I'm doing, like for my body and just for myself while I'm in here. So just
Mhm.
like focusing on the small things that keep me like literally alive um, are very helpful. Like when
That's
it
good.
to just have a mindfulness. Yeah.
Staying present.
Okay. So I guess these will be our last two questions.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
ask
good.
one more. So, okay. What are things that like put you off?
That
Or I
put me off.
guess like pet peeve sort of things. The
Oh,
question
this
was
one's
phrased really
really
weird.
easy. I've been waiting for someone to
Oh,
ask me this because I have an
oh my
instant
god.
response. Arrogance
Okay.
puts me off so much. If I meet an arrogant person, I cannot deal with them for even a minute. Like there are so many different types of people that I can like adapt to be flexible. Like if you're stubborn, I can deal with it. If you're like mean, I can deal with it. But if you're
Oh,
arrogant,
okay.
oh my God, it just irks me so much. Like I cannot imagine thinking of myself as like superior to someone else and then making a point to like just expound on it, you know? So no, when I meet arrogant people, I cannot deal with them at all. I just can't.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty. I
Final
am prepared.
question.
I'm
Yeah.
strapping in for this.
One final question. Speaking of health and taking care of your body, do you
Oh,
have a secret
okay.
hunch about how you will die?
I don't know. I feel like it's going to be something like really, really like ordinary, but also really stupid. Like
Same.
I don't. The other day I was like out jogging, and like there's like um a main road here, and then when
Mm-hmm.
you go in a little bit, there's like a neighborhood, sort of like a cul-de-sac area. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like walking in this passage between the cul-de-sac and the road, and a car was like it just drove in front of
Is
me.
yours getting
I
hit
had
by
like
a car too? Because I know that's gonna be me.
I had like my AirPods in, right? And it was
Oh
like
no.
probably 2 feet in front of me. And I just stood there like dumbfounded. I had no reaction.
Oh
And
my
I was
God.
like, wow, that's nice. I should have
That
taken out
car.
my AirPods. And
Oh
then I
my
was
God.
on the sidewalk again. I went back on the sidewalk. And I stood there like staring at the grass because I was like, I literally almost died.
Yeah, oh
And if
God.
I died, it was honestly, it's gonna be something super
No,
absent-minded like that.
I know mine's gonna be something related
That's
to a
how I'm
car
gonna go
because
now.
for someone who doesn't drive anywhere, like I walk anywhere I need to go if I
Mhm.
can. So it's
Just
gonna be
looking both
something
ways
related to a
across
car.
the
I just
street.
know it. All right, this is the end of this week's Arm Bridge podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed our speed round question session again. We tried to make it a little bit less existential this time. Um, we'd like to credit a couple. Do we have some websites to credit? I
Forbes, Vox.
Thank you to Forbes. Thank you to Vox. Thank you for Goldcast for my questions for our last 10 minutes. Um, yeah. In addition, thank you again to all of our buddies that submitted the questions for the music industry. They were very thought-provoking. I really liked
Very
them.
thought-provoking.
We hope you continue to listen to us and join us next week for Arm Bridge. Goodbye.